What's up, people? This is RL. Welcome to another episode of the Wrap Up Review Series, where we wrap up. Almost sounded like Scooby-Doo there for a minute, but yeah, where we wrap up a game that I recently finished. And in this episode, we're going to be wrapping up Black Sigil, Blade of the Exiled, for the Nintendo DS. Now, this game was released back in 2009 by a company called Graffiti, and it's a company that really doesn't have too much to brag about when it comes to their games. I've seen a list of all the games that they came out with, and it's mostly for like the iPhone and phone apps like that. And I would say that out of the list of games that they ever came out with, Black Sigil was their best invention, like, so to speak. So without further ado, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you guys, just a little bit of the story. Then I'm gonna give you a little bit of the gameplay. Then I'm gonna tell you my negatives and my positives, and then I'm gonna rate the game overall. So, Black Sigil, what is it? It is a role-playing / RPG / open world style of game. When the game first starts off, Black Sigil starts off in the kingdom of Bellanora, and you're playing the role of Kairu, who is a magical knight in training. But the problem is that he can't use magic, and as he is training, he gets heckled and bullied by being called a monster and all these nasty things by, all the other kids in training, or well, more so all the other knights. I won't say kids because they were not kids, but, they get heckled by, he gets heckled by everybody else who can use magic, and so eventually, that leads to Kairu's father, the king, sending him on a mission that is pretty much a suicide mission. To face this monster that can only be killed by magic. And so after he recovers from that, thanks to his sister, who was a fire sorceress, she saved his life from that one. He feels bad about it. He feels bad, or more so, even worse, that he couldn't use any magic. So he goes back to his father, the king, and he basically begs him for another chance, or more so, like the father, says that he has like one more job for him to do, etc. And like Kairu was like, "Oh, I will not fail you this time, my king," such and such. But so this eventually leads the king to take Kairu to this place called the Cursed Caves, where this place was sealed off by the king, many years ago. Like, in order to stop this evil spirit called the Forbidden from ever coming back into their world. And of course, like other evil creatures. So his father leads into that, and he starts talking to him. And as Kairu is looking at the seal that's on the Forbidden Caves, or well, on the Cursed Caves, his father takes out his sword and he does something. But I'm not going to ruin the rest of the storyline from there. All I'm going to tell you is that the storyline is one of the better aspects of the game. It is very well written. And I would say from the storyline alone, like, this game is worth getting if you ever, can find it on the internet or whatever. But let's get finished with the review first before I say anything regarding, getting this game. Um, the gameplay, the gameplay of Black Sigil is essentially like, how can I put it? Like the earlier Final Fantasy games uh, mixed with Grandia 2 from the Sega Dreamcast. Um, like it's an open world style of game where you can travel by land, sea, or sky to various cities, caves, and just explore those areas. Um, and it's tons of places to go in this game, especially once you get the bigger ships and even a sky ship, because there are some places that are only accessible by using those methods of transportation. Like for example, there'll be some areas that are landlocked that the ship can't reach, so you would have to use the sky ship in order to land on those islands and in those isolated areas. Um, and there will be some places where the sky ship can't land. That you can only use the ship because the sky ship cannot land in areas that has like this forest deal on it, or that has a forest on it. So those places would most likely be accessible only by ship. So you would end up, you know, only be able to reach those areas by ship. Yeah, moving on. The combat system in Black Sigil is, again, it's like a mixture between the earlier Final Fantasy games and, hold on, let me close this out. Okay, like the earlier Final Fantasy games, and of course, like I said, the Sega Dreamcast title, um, Grandia 2, and when a battle starts, you know, like there's this weight meter that you have to wait to get filled up. Just like those Final Fantasy games, like I said. And once that weight meter fills up for that character, and by the way, like you can have up to 3 characters uh, um, on your team at a time, just to let you know. But yeah, you would have to wait until that meter fills up uh, before you're able to take any action. Now, once the meter fills up, of course, you have your options of what you want to do. Whether you want to do a normal attack, a skill attack, a dual technique attack, or if you want to use an item that you had on that character. Now, like normal attacks are normal attacks, but mind you, some characters are long range attackers, and some characters are more so um, uh, um, close range. So let's say if a close range attacker um, like has a target that's from like, well, that's pretty much like on the other side of the map, or like that has like some type of distance, that character would have to run literally from this side, all the way over to this other side in order to reach it. So it's going to be some times where you won't be able to do anything, and that's kind of fucked up. That's kind of where they fucked up. It's like the tutorial in this game is not very explanatory. It doesn't do a good job, but I'm gonna get that once I talk about my negatives. Like I'm gonna elaborate on that more when I talk about my negatives. So I'm gonna just continue on with the combat system. Uh, there's your skill attacks that each character learns, just as they level up in, like some typical RPGs or role-playing games. Once you reach a certain level, once a character reaches a certain level, like they learn new skills. Now with the dual techniques, these are kind of special because it depends on who you have active in your party for a certain amount of time. And not only that, but it depends on how many battles those allies have had together. So after a certain amount of time, or after like a certain amount of battles, these characters will learn what they call a dual technique, and this would cause both of them to have like their weight meters filled up. And once you do, you can use a dual technique. Now sometimes these attacks are close range, sometimes these attacks are long range, sometimes it hits all the characters on the screen. But when it does hit more times than none, it does a massive amount of damage. So once you get to like the later parts in the game, it's pretty much mandatory that you start using those double techniques, so so you can end the battle quickly in your favor. And then there's the items. Now the items are kind of special. There's a feature in this game that allows you to equip 4 different items onto a character, whether it be a healing item, a special points restoration item, an item that heals ailments, etc. You know, and you can take those in battle with you, because like they don't allow you to access your inventory during a fight. So yeah, so like it's pretty much a wise move to use that feature to your advantage, because the encounter rate in this game is high, so you're going to need to use pretty much everything at your disposal, because I would say like every 5 to 8 steps, you're going to be entering a fight. On average, every 5 to 8 steps, you're going to be entering a fight, and they happen that often. And that's pretty much where the game takes a bad turn. There's up to 8 characters in this game. There's 6 that the game gives you, like just by following the storyline, but there's 2 secret characters that you can unlock, which opens up some extra dialogue, like during the cutscenes, opens up extra skills, of course, because they're going to have their own set of moves. And it also affects the ending depending on, how many of these secret characters you unlock. But there are only 2 of them, so yeah. But they're worth getting because they are pretty good, and they're very unique. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for like the storyline and the gameplay. So I guess I'll just move right on to the negatives and positives. Now, I had to write these down as I was playing the game because there was quite a few of them that was just ridiculous, as you can see right here. Yeah, like I got like the negatives right here. I had to write these down because it's like a full page and a half of negatives. First off, the encounter rate is too high, like I said, and they happen too often, which leads you to end up using all of your magic for like healing spells and using up all your healing items. And because you encounter so much with your health and levels the way that they are, you end up dying quickly or using your healing and magic items up. Then you end up dying. The monsters are kind of overpowered early. Well, I wouldn't say overpowered, but like they are a bit excessive with the encounter rate. And the monsters, the amount of damage that they do, like you would have to heal your team after every, I would say like after every like 1 to 3 battles, because the monsters would be doing that much damage to you. And this is early on in the game, so it could be kind of frustrating when you're just trying to learn the game and you have to deal with these issues so early. The combat system could have been much better. With the game design the way it is, they should have made it to where you can save your progress at any time and not just on the world map. they do have a save feature in the game, and I forgot to talk about this during my like my gameplay, but I guess that's a part of the negatives now, so whatever. But yeah, like when you're on the world map, you can save literally at any time that you're not in a battle. But once you get in the dungeons, there's rare save points in those dungeons, and I would just like to say that it would be in your best interest if you play this game to use the game guide. Use the game guide to your advantage, because some of these save points are like hard to find, and you'll probably be dead before you end up finding it. Because like I said, the monsters encounter rate is so high, and they hit you with monsters every like 5 to 8 in-game steps on the average, and you would be fighting so much that after like 2 to 3 battles, you have to heal yourself, and you have to restore uh, your special points. And once that's run out, you're pretty much assed out for the rest of the way. And it's save points in the game, like in dungeons and towns, but it's so few of them that it kind of becomes aggravating, because if you go in these dungeons and you didn't save your game like prior to you entering that dungeon, which is understandably easily to forget, it's crazy, because some places don't even have save points at that, but the monster encounter rate is still high. So if you die, like, you would lose so much progress that you would essentially have to start all the way back from your last save point, which would be so far back. You know what I mean? And then you would have to go and you have to repeat that whole process all over again, which is just stupid to me. That's the reason why it's a negative. They should have implemented, like, if they were going to make the game like this, they should have implemented a feature that allowed you to save, pretty much any time you wanted to, in or out of a dungeon. I know some people probably look at this and say, oh, well, that's just the challenging aspect of the game. No, it's stupid. When you have a game with an encounter rate that high, and it causes you to use up all of your resources in order to heal your team, and you have to go through these dungeons, this is trial and error, so you may not be able to get it right the first time. Everybody's not that good at games. So, like the average person won't be able to figure that, most probably won't be able to figure that out, on the first try. So they're going to be going every which way and trying to figure out where they need to go in order to, in order to exit this dungeon. You're pretty much going to be fucked over. At times, it just feels like that. And that's just annoying, because it would be ways back from where you progress. Like, you'll just lose so much that after, after a couple times, like, it just gets annoying. Because there are some items that are really good that you would just have to skip and wait until next time to get them, but that's not really a negative. I'm just throwing that out there. But you think that you would have some time to go get these items, because they would be like right over there, or like right in this corner, just like a few steps over here. But then you enter a battle and it's this monster that just annihilates you. Like this one time I was in like this desert, and I stepped over to try to get this item chest, and this monster just killed me. So because that save feature wasn't in the game, normally if it was in there, like, I could have just saved right there, tried to go get that item, and just see if I was able to get it, or just to see what would happen if I go off this path. At least I'll be able to restart and just reload my game from that point. prior to me trying to go attempt to get that item. But because it wasn't in there, you would have to um, start all the way back from the beginning of the dungeon, or even further back from that. So it's really stupid that they didn't put in some feature that allows you to save at any time. Mind you, this game was made back in 2009, so it wasn't no excuse for this. It was plenty of RPGs and role-playing games that probably came out in 2009, I'm sure, that had either, like proper checkpoints, proper save points, and, or some type of feature that allows you to save at any time, so that way you can do like the trial and error properly. But I digress. The game doesn't explain itself the majority of the time. And this is one of the things that I kind of hinted when I was speaking about the gameplay. The tutorial in this game is just half-assed. Like it just tells you how to attack, and that's it. That's pretty much the gist of it. It just tells you how to attack, and that's everything. It doesn't tell you about the other things that you pretty much need to know in order to, in order to use the combat system more efficiently. I got it written right here. Like when the weight meter fills up, that character has to perform an action, otherwise you won't be able to do anything else. And some characters would be out of the attack range, so you would have to wait until the enemy does something or got close to do anything, or use a healing item or something, etc. Well, if you hold down the L trigger and you press a direction, you can move closer to a target, or you can move that character around manually so that you can move closer to that attack target. That way you'll be able to perform, an action. But mind you, once you do that, like, you won't be able to do a normal attack, and you have the option to cancel your move that you just made. You can just restart over again, with that movement of that character. So if you decided to do like a special skill instead, you can do it. But yeah, you hold down the L trigger, you can and you push a direction, you can manually control where that character moves to, which is helpful. And you can move them closer to that attack target. But the game doesn't explain that. And at one point, one of my characters suddenly couldn't use any magic spells, and it wasn't really explained. Like some games, like when something happens within the storyline and it would affect your gameplay, the game would pop up some type of message saying that, okay, well, this character won't be able to use magic spells for a while, or something like that. This game doesn't do that. It doesn't tell you that, oh, well, this character can't use magic spells now, for this certain period of time, or, like whenever. So you would really have to pay attention to what's happening in the actual storyline for you to understand what's going on. There's another major flaw in this game, and again, it's never explained how to access, like the different skill sets. Now, of course, each character essentially has 8 different skills that they can learn. 8 different skills that they can learn on their own. Like, I'm not talking about like the dual techniques. I'm talking about their regular skills. They can learn up to 8. Now, once that first 4 is filled up, you end up learning. There's this second set of skills that you can access by pressing the R trigger. Now, again, the game doesn't explain this, so you're lost when you see that your character has learned this new ability, and you go check the menu, and there's no way for you to access it during fights. You're kind of lost, because these attacks are more powerful, and they can actually help you, win fights. But if you don't know how to access them, then, like, how are you supposed to use them? the game never explains to you that if you push the R button, you can access those. Uh, you can access that second set of skills. Like while you're on that first menu of skills. So that's another thing about the game. The tutorial sucks. Another thing is that the game locks up. It locks up at a point with all the other issues that I had with this game. At this point, like I was about to say fuck it because I was really aggravated, truth be told, and I can tell you on part 124 at 4 minutes and 29 seconds, you can see, like granted, this only happened once, but it shouldn't have happened at all, period. So, you can see that the controls in the game lock up for whatever reason. And I checked some reviews online for this game, and, I'm not the first person, well, I'm not the only person that this happened to. Other people experienced this as well. So this game has some serious glitches, and that's kind of fucked up that the game locks up and you end up having to restart the game, and your save point is way back when, again, losing all that progress, and you gotta start all the way over to deal with this again. It's just, it's stupid. Also, this game has a glitch that prevents you from learning new skills even after the game says that you learned it. There was this side quest that I did in this volcano, and what I had to do was I had to save this whale, this magical spirit whale, right? And when you walk up to the whale, like the game basically gives you two options. Like it says, okay, like this whale has been like up in this volcano for like oh so long because the water's been drained from that area and it landed in there. But like the game gives you a couple options whether you want to slay it or whether you want to save it somehow. And if you choose to save it, then it gives you a skill called the Beast of War, I believe. And it's a dual technique for two characters on your team. Now the game tells you that you learn this new skill for such and such for these two characters. But when you go to the menu, you don't see it. So again, I went to read the game guide or and the reviews to see if anybody else had this problem. Turns out that there is a game glitch in the game that prevents you from actually learning the skill. And in order for you to use it, mind you, the game told you that you had access to it. But in order for you to use it, you would have to use a cheat code. So you're telling me that the game tells me I just learned a new skill, but in order for me to actually use that skill, I have to go find some cheat code online in order to unlock it? What kind of dumb shit is that? That's just poor programming right there. And had they tested the game, they would have been able to find that. So, moving on. And like the same goes for some special item drops during like one of my side quests. There was an item drop on a boss that pretty much dropped it at random. Now I got the item, but some people in the reviews, like they said they didn't get it. So let me get this straight. You have a side quest that has a mandatory boss that has an optional boss that you have no way of fighting that boss again. Like you have no chance of that boss actually respawning. And there's an item on there for one of your characters that drops at random. Like, why would you have that? You know, there's no way for you to fight this boss again. You know, in certain MMOs they have it because those bosses respawn. This is a boss that you only get to fight once during the side quest, so why is there an item that drops at random? That's stupid. And again, it blows my mind how they didn't catch this, you know, because they read in the credits that, you know, these two guys had tried the game, and they beta tested it. How the hell they didn't catch this, I don't know. But yeah, you know, it's not a guaranteed drop, you know, which is stupid. And yeah, another thing is that the monsters weren't made properly. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, like certain illustrations. I mean, just on the amount of damage that they do and things like that, and like their health. Like like on top of the fact that the encounter rate is high as it is, like the regular monsters can have the same health as a boss monster, pretty much, and that's just fucked up to me. And sometimes they may do almost as much damage as the boss monsters do. So, mind you, when you get an encounter, you're pretty much fighting like 1 to 5 monsters at a time, and each of these monsters have health that's, you know, like the same as a boss monster. Like, why the hell does the regular monsters have the same health as the boss monsters? You know what I mean? Like, they're regular monsters. They shouldn't be on the level of any boss in the game, period. You know? And to me, that's just bad programming. One more thing, and this ties in with the game not explaining itself well. In this case, it was pretty much too late. Like, the second to the last dungeon in the game tells you that you can use the save points to switch out your characters. Now, when you're on the open world parts of the game, you can switch out your characters. You know, you can switch out your teams, like your team members, and you know, and that's what they're talking about. But in this particular case, like, there are certain save points in some dungeons where you can use, of course, like to save your progress, and you can use those save points to, you know, like the same way that you would just like change out your characters or your teammates for your main party. You can do that at these save points in these dungeons, which is helpful. Now, problem is, the game doesn't tell you this until the second to the last dungeon in the game, which is dumb, because at this point you haven't been doing that. You're used to not doing it, and it's the second to the last dungeon. I mean, really? And like, the last dungeon is pretty straightforward. It just shoots straight to the boss. You know, no corners cut in between. So it was, again, just bad programming. Why would you put that critical piece of information at the last part of the game? Like, it wouldn't make any sense to use it then. You know, so whatever. But despite all the glitches, the freezes, and the bad programming of this game, it still has some good points. This game holds a nostalgia factor. You know, like I said, it reminds you of those earlier Final Fantasy games. You know, with the illustration and the storyline, because it's that good. You know, like, the storyline is that good. It's really one of the strong points of this game. It was it was times where they had so many plot twists and so many shocking surprises that you end up dropping your jaw. Like, I literally had my mouth wide open at one point in this game, cause like, it was like a major plot twist, and they do this every now and then in the game. But there's some, like, the storyline is pretty good. You know, it's very well done. Another thing that you get experience points before your inactive members of your team. Like I said, you can get up to 8 characters. There's 6 characters that the game gives you, just by following the storyline, and there are 2 secret characters. But you can only have up to 3 characters in your main party, that will be doing the battle. After every fight, that team, your main party, they gain experience, but the characters that are on the inactive roster, like the ones that aren't battling, they gain the same amount of experience points as the characters that were doing the fighting. So this is pretty much good, because that's less work you have to do with going back and you have to train everybody up, because at certain points in the storyline the characters actually have to split up into teams, and so it's important to try to get there. So normally in other games where you would have to worry about going back and you have to switch out the characters and you would have to train these characters up, the game pretty much grants all those inactive roster members the same amount of experience, so that their levels and their strength and everything can be up to par with the characters that are on the active roster, and that's good. Like I said, it's less work you have to do. However, those characters on the inactive roster, they won't learn any new skills while they're inactive. So you would have to put them back on your team, and you would have to, then go train them up one level, and that's when they'll learn the skill that they were supposed to learn at, whatever level. Also, this game does a good job with telling the backstory of each character, which is always good. That way you get to find out, who these characters are. So there's some good character development in this game. Like I said, the storyline is one of the better parts in the game. So also there's a nice handful of optional content in this game that really can add to the overall experience and the hours to this game. I didn't play all of the optional content, but I did play most of it. I missed 1 or 2 optional missions, but that was before I had that was before I started using the game guide to help me out with some of these dungeons, because these dungeons are ridiculous. But yeah, there's a nice handful of optional content, and I did the majority of it, with the exception of 2. My ending gameplay hours were 29 hours and 30 minutes worth of gameplay. So if I would have did those other optional missions, you're looking at 30 to possibly 32 hours of gameplay, which is pretty good, period. And that's pretty much it. Oh, it was one negative I forgot to tell you about. Well, not forgot to tell you about, but it was the scenario. Again, when I was telling you about the encounter rate being so high and it being so bad because of that, it would be times where you would run out of healing items and healing magic, that you would essentially be stuck in a dungeon. And this happened to me once, and it was the only time it happened to me, and that was the only time I was going to let it happen to me, because I wasn't going to start over that progress from my last save point, which was far back. I was in a dungeon, I was trying to figure out where to go, and I was having so many battles that eventually I ran out of healing items and healing magic. So I was just asked out. My character's life was low. I wasn't finna start over with anything, so I just decided like fuck it, I was gonna use a cheat code to like just like help me out this dungeon and to like stop the encounters. So that's kind of fucked up when a game backs you into a corner like that because it was poorly designed that you would actually be pretty much recommended to use a cheat code to do anything, whether that be learn a skill or otherwise. Um, Overall, like my final thoughts of this game, that it's good, but it most definitely could have used a lot more polish. Um, they could have tested this game a lot more than what they did because it's no way possible they tested it and they caught all of these issues. But factoring all my negatives, all my positives, the storyline being as good as it is, the combat, and the actual gameplay overlooking the glitches and the freezes and all these other problems, factoring in everything, I would still have to give this game like a 6.9 out of 10. It's just under a 7. If the game didn't have those issues that I was telling you about, this game would have easily gotten an 8 out of 10 for me. But this game was made back in 2009, and even then, it was no excuse for a game to be made like this with all these issues. And, that's pretty much it. Um, so, I think it's a good game, but it could have been better. And I wish that Graffiti, if they attempt to make a sequel to this game, which probably won't happen, that they don't have so many amateur mistakes in their game, because this game could have been so much better had it not had those problems. And they had implemented some other features. So that's pretty much it for this episode of Wrap Up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not too comfortable talking into the camera, but I'm getting more comfortable doing it, as you can see. But yeah, you guys stick with me and I'll stick with you, and we'll work this thing out. So until the next episode of Wrap Up, peace, and you guys have a good one.